YouTube should be going live any minute. All right. So let's get started. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and thank you for joining this important workshop. We have Sister Hi. Sorry, we're getting a feedback from either Facebook or YouTube, so that I just muted that. So we have Sister Hayat Jaludi with us, and thank you, Sister, for joining us and offering us this excellent workshop. Sister Hayat is the principal of the Al Hikmah Elementary School, which is part of the Islamic Education Foundation. They also have the Al Ghazali Middle and Senior High School. So just as a disclosure, all my three kids went through Al Hikmah from kindergarten till they graduated, and they then moved on to Al Ghazali High School. So mashallah, IEF is doing an excellent job. So I'm going to do a quick intro of Sister, and then I'll hand it over to her. Give me 1 second. I had everything open, then I lost it. So Sister Hayat has a BS in Management, Marketing, and Finance from Rutgers University, and also has a master's degree in Educational Leadership Supervision from Montclair State University. She is a certified New Jersey State elementary education teacher, as well as certified in business education. I believe she's also has a Rutgers University School of Business mini MBA. So without taking up more time, I'm going to hand this over to Sister Hayat. Sister Hayat, the floor is yours. Please take over.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
I can't hear you. You might be muted.
I'm muted. Okay. Am I on?
Yes.
Do you hear me? Oh, I'm not sure what's happened. Brother, I can't hear you. Oh my goodness. Sorry, brother, I'm not sure if you could hear me, but I can't hear you.
We can hear you. I'm just muting myself because it's causing a loop.
Okay. For some reason, okay, I'm back. Here I am. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed and Fusion. I don't know if you see that on my screen right now. Do you see that settings on my screen or no? Okay, let me just close that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmed and Fusion, for allowing me to be here tonight. I am very happy to be able to join the community and brothers and sisters. As Brother Ahmed mentioned, I am the principal at Al Hikmah Elementary School, part of IEF Schools. As an educator, a parent, and an administrator, there are several topics that I believe we've all been very much affected by. And that was the digital force that we've been forced into as parents and educators. So the topic today that we chose to speak about, and Brother Ahmed and I discussed this in detail, was that what is my child watching? Throughout this presentation, I will be talking about ways that we could protect our children, our students, from online, no matter how they're using it or how they're accessing it. We know that during this age, due to COVID, we've all been forced into this virtual world, right? We've been locked down, but our lives have turned from person to virtual, or what we call online now. So the widespread closures, the school closures, in-house quarantine, the increase of online learning, all of this has turned into digital screen time for our children into almost consuming their whole day. And as parents, we're wondering, are they truly online for school, or are they playing games, or are they on apps that they shouldn't be on, right? So these days increase. Okay, so these days kids have access to hundreds of games. They have access to social media. They have access to internet websites that you perhaps don't want them to be on. So the best way for us to monitor media that your children is watching or they're experiencing or playing or viewing, we have to be able to, as educators, as parents, know how to monitor all of this while allowing them to be able to be part of this safely and part of this digital new age that we were forced into in a healthy way. So we're going to monitor our children. We're going to be able to watch the dangers of the internet and be wise enough and educated enough on how to help them avoid those sites that we don't want them to be on. And we want to teach them internet responsibility. So we're closer monitoring and more controls are needed. Parents have a number of ways to keep track of the media their kids watch, play, and that they use. These tools may not shield our children at least, but we can help. And the way we could help is by educating ourselves on these different websites and what it is that our children are watching, so that we can start looking into maybe monitoring them through different apps. So what do we want them to get out of the digital age? We want them to be able to learn. We want them to be able to have some fun. We want them to have some connection. And we have to look for apps or TV shows that send positive images. So first of all, it's very important to know that we're all trying to navigate this world and these devices and these new technology that are in our children's hands, and it's not easy. So what we should start by doing is always talking about online manners and how do we perform as Muslim children on different sites, on different apps, what we should expect, how we should avoid all of these things. So it's almost called an etiquette. We all have etiquettes on how to perform inside of a classroom. We have etiquette on how to perform when we're inside the masjid or inside our relative's home. It's the same way with online. Virtually, there is a way to perform, and that's called online etiquette. So it starts with your youngest child to your oldest. In order for them to have a good foundation, we have to speak about these things. We have to speak about it in school. We have to speak about it at home. We have to speak about it in our masajid. In order for us to be successful in anything, we have to understand that in order to raise our children, our students, we have to form a team. We have to know that we support one another. We are one big family. And this family consists of the school, the home, and the masjid. The administrators, the teachers, their fellow classmates, their family members, everybody from their internal family to the external family to the masjid. You could start talking about all of these topics to your children and talking about the dangers of internet, the dangers of various apps, the dangers of things that they may be watching on TV. We talk about it in school, obviously, but it has to continue in home as well. So dealing with the internet and its usage is a difficult topic. We all know that, especially for Muslim parents. On one hand, the internet is full of amazing learning websites. We see that at school, in my school, at Al-Hikmah. We use the internet in positive ways. We introduce curriculum because we have the viability now to reach all over the globe to get information for our students as far as Islamic curriculum is considered. In fact, our math and science curriculum, we are searching everywhere in order to enhance our curriculums. So on the one hand, like I said, the internet is full of amazing learning websites, documentaries, Islamic websites, and it's also a great way to connect with family, right? But then there's the dark side that all are afraid of, parents are afraid of, educators are afraid of. There are inappropriate and explicit websites. There's cyberbullying. There's things that may entice our young minds towards violence. We know that they exist, right? And we have to be practical in finding ways on how to protect our children from it. So what are your children currently interested in? We don't know, right? We have to be able to speak to them. Keep open lines of communication with your children. Understand what it is that's out there now, what these children are watching, what they're hearing. There's so much social media apps out there that these kids have access to. For example, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok. Do they play games that are open-ended? Can people join in? Are they using Google to help them with their homework? Are they online, in fact, doing homework? Are they playing computer games? Are they watching videos on YouTube? These are all questions that we need to learn to ask our children. Of course, we can't stop them from using or entering the virtual world because of COVID and because of this pandemic, and that it forced us to be virtually online. Schools have closed down across the nation, internationally. All students now are behind the screen. And what's happening is this gray area where we're not sure, is our child using the internet right now for school, or is my child on there playing games, chatting with people that she or he shouldn't have? The main way to help reduce or protect them from these elements that you don't want them to be a part of is through communication. So knowing about the dark net has raised great concern for parents, because we hear about it. As adults, we hear about it, we see it, we read articles. So do we allow our children to use the internet? At what age should we allow our children to use it? How do we restrict them from access to these unfavorable websites? First, it's important to know that they were all trying to navigate this together, right? This new world of having to be virtual, having to be online most of the time. Parents are calling me at school and asking me, Sister Het, how do I deal with this? How do I know how many hours my child should be on? Should they be on it as much as they are? Kids are using a lot of media, and parents are feeling a lot of guilt and anxiety because you're not familiar or used to your child being on the computer for these many hours. So the only way I can answer these questions is by communicating. Again, communicating with your children, communicating with adults that know a bit more about the safeties of being online. Ask them what they're doing. Start the conversation. Don't be afraid to ask them, what is it that you're doing? Are you doing homework? Keep supervising it. Try to gauge the number of hours for homework. Speak to your school, speak to your child's teacher and ask them how many hours should it take to do their assignments, especially depending on the grade level that they're on. And then tell them, what is your favorite app that you're using? Sometimes when you're talking to your child, you'll see that they tend to give you information without them even knowing that they're giving you information. They'll talk about an app that you really not are familiar with. And once that they name that app for you or that site and you're not familiar with it, I would do my research and find out more about it. So the first step is to speak to your child, communicate with them, ask them what they're doing online, especially if it's after school hours. Speak to your child's school and ask them how long should they be on? Would it take them this long to do any assignment? And 3, find out more about what apps, what sites they're going on. So once you start to discuss these things with them regularly, they know that you are available for them. They know that you're always consistently supervising them and know that you're aware, because an aware parent and a learned parent is a parent that can guide their child into what's best for them. Once your child knows that you're aware of what they are doing, they will definitely make less mistakes than those children that they know that parents are not aware of what they are doing. So we have to be able to look like or to have control and to be able to deal with the situations and stop them from going on if they are indeed going on. There are situations that you may find that you find your child is going on a website he or she should not be going on. There's an app that they're using that they shouldn't be, but you have to be able to know how to deal with that situation. Once again, I'll say you might not be able to protect them from everything, but you can certainly teach them how to make responsible choices. Once they're educated in how to perform with responsibility using the internet, especially as Muslim children, we have to guide them first, what is right and what is wrong, what is halal and what is not. Once they have that foundation and they're using the online internet for educational or even recreational reasons, they would know what things to avoid. They will be open enough to come to you and say something if they've seen something that they shouldn't have. And that has happened plenty of times. Many of our students will say that, during this time, I saw something I shouldn't have. That's because they have an open lines of communication with their parents. They know that their parents are aware. They know that the school is aware. And they feel free enough to come and say, I've seen something that I shouldn't have. So let's start discussing the inappropriate things your child may encounter online. So the internet obviously opens up an entire world of information and images that you may or may not want your child to be privy to. And on the internet, your child may come across content that we don't want them to have access to. But unfortunately, sometimes they do see these things in error. And you don't want your child to see something in error and be so afraid not to tell you and harbor it for a while. And that begins to affect them. It affects them emotionally and socially. We all know that during this whole COVID pandemic, we hear the word social and emotional learning, social and emotional damage. It's because during this pandemic, a lot of students have been affected. They don't know how to perform, or they don't know how to react to things that they've witnessed, or they don't know how to react to all of the COVID pandemic trials that came along with it. Things that they could see on the internet or through an app is excessive violence, hate speech, risky behaviors that we don't want our children to hear or see even. And they may receive solicitations. This is something that we have to worry about. People reaching out to our children through games, especially those games that it's a platform where they can play with anybody. They could join a game and there's people playing on it that they don't even know, and they assume different identities. Seeing inappropriate content online has a negative impact on children. Some kids, especially younger, like the students that we teach in elementary school, they feel guilty or they feel ashamed if they see something. We have to be equipped as adults to speak to them and let them know it isn't their fault, but we have to let them know that they have to avoid things like this. Let them know that they could always talk to you. Letting them know that as a parent, obviously you want the best for them. And sometimes the best for them may see something, it may seem unfair to them if you tell them, okay, to not allow you to watch these things, or you can't hear these things, or you can't play on these certain games. So the goal obviously is to have regular and active conversations with your children. Really, we've all known that as adults, when we speak to each other and we speak to each other clearly, and our goal is clear for one another as adults, we are able to succeed in the outcome because we both know what it is that we're aiming for. As parents and as adults and as educators, conversation and communication with these young children about letting them know what's right from wrong and letting them know that the internet could be a very worrisome place for them will allow them to be able to talk to you and will allow them to be able to know that you are completely aware of what it is that's out there. So we need to talk about things like turning off the screen. We have to talk to them about screen time. We have to talk to them about how many hours they can be on it, what games they can and cannot play with. It's okay to say they cannot play with this certain game, or they cannot enter this website. You, of course, are the one guiding the way. So as I said, we do have legitimate fears and concerns, and obviously these fears and concerns are well-founded because of the media that's out there and because of this wide world of internet access and information that's out there that we have no control of. What we do have control of in our homes is how we allow our children to utilize the internet. So if you're worried about doing it right, then you're definitely doing it right. You're not doing anything wrong. Because if you've come to a point where you're aware of the fact that the internet could be a worrisome place for my child, or these apps that they're on could be a dangerous app for them, then you're doing it right. Because at least you know the fears that come in with the internet and what your child is watching. So remember, the skills that your child needs to practice is safe behavior. They have to be able to know how to navigate the internet. They have to know how to utilize the apps that are truly useful to them. I want to come and compare it, make a really good comparison. If you remember or recall when you first wanted your child to sit in the car and we taught them how to put seatbelts on, we started by buckling them into their seats. As they grew up to toddlers and preschoolers, we still buckled them in, but we talked to them about why. Why am I buckling you in? Same thing with the internet. And we allowed them to help us as they grow older. They started climbing in by themselves. They started putting the seatbelt on with them. So we have these conversations many times with them over the years. As they're growing older, we work with other adults to show them that while my child is with you in the car, I'd like them to, put the seatbelt on, buckle it up. It's the same thing with the internet. It's the same thing. We start with them when they're young. So the same is true for online. From the very beginning of a child's life with the internet, we have to let them know that everything is age appropriate. There are things that they should be watching. There are things that they shouldn't be watching. And as they progressively get older, it becomes almost natural for them to understand how to use the internet, what websites are the proper ones for me, how long I should even stay on this. Is this an app that's appropriate to me and to my beliefs and to what my parents raised me to believe or what my community expects of me? So I do get a lot of questions from my parents and from other adults that tells me how much screen time is negative, or how much time should my child stay on the internet or use the internet. So there's no research that says to you the exact amount of time kids can be on screen time without negatively affecting them. But we have to ask ourselves, are our children using screen time as one part of their lives, getting exercise? Are they eating well? Are they being social? Are they focused on family? Are they performing their salah on time? Are they doing their assignments on time? Are they socially apt with everybody? If they are, then we can say safely that the internet is not affecting them, inshallah. So how do we use media, internet in balance with family, with school, and with community? That's a question that we have to ask ourselves. So we must find quality content. We have to set expectations, and we have to raise media awareness and responsible children. With all of these, we can have a great balance because, like I mentioned before, family, school, and community, we're all one. We have to stand together and know that in the day and age that we're living, with all of the outside pressures that are on our children, the only way that we could develop and instill great character traits and a well-balanced child who has a great balance of religion and a great citizen in society is by us joining forces, is by the family joining in with their school and keeping open communication with their school and letting them know, or being a part of their child's development, both academically and behaviorally and socially. And of course, having a very strong sense of the Islamic community and knowing where they identify with their masjid, having your children part of extracurricular activities in the masjid or in the community center. These three very vital elements in a child's life growing up will kind of sway them away from wanting to be online or using these apps or depending on these games. This doesn't say that a child isn't allowed to play on a game or have a certain app. This is obviously up to the family, but there should be a really good balance where it says my child is able to develop academically and behaviorally and have great character traits. At the same time, he's doing great in school and he's doing great with family and he's doing great in the masjid. These three elements really do have a strong effect on our children. And don't forget, always, we are the models. The adults are the models. So if my child sees me behind the screen most of the time during the day, he or she thinks this is the natural way to do it. My parent is always behind the screen. The phone's always in their hand. If they see that I am able to balance my professional life along with my family life, along with my ability to connect with my deen, then inshallah, you will have a very well-balanced child. Modeling behavior is one of the biggest elements. So we want to set some ground rules. We want to establish clear guidelines. What kind of sites is my child allowed to visit? What kind of apps are they allowed to download? And when can they have access to the electronics? You have to be the one to gauge the amount of time that your child is allowed to stay on these apps or have the tablets in their hands. Unfortunately, when you go to any event or you're outside, and most of the time, these young children all have tablets in their hands. And either they're playing a game or they're on their app when they could be just really having great time of having real social in-person, person-to-person interactions. And I know with COVID, the person-to-person interactions has definitely been limited, but a lot of people that I've spoken to has used Zoom or Google Meets as a family event where they actually would set up a Zoom meeting and the family would read Quran together, or they would have a discussion. They didn't let this get in the way because we didn't want to push children to reverting or going towards apps to be their social getaway. We want them to stay connected with family, and we want them to be able to function as a normal child during this time without just always going towards the tablet or going towards their games. As I said, let's set some ground rules. There's something called blackout periods that you will hear on certain websites, or you hear it on some platforms where they say a home should have a blackout period. And what is a blackout period? A blackout period is where all electronic devices get turned off. Tablets, phones, laptops, computers just get turned off, and we use it as family time. We use it a time where we just kind of diffuse for the day and just speak to one another. What happened at school today? What happened at work today? Is there a topic that we wanted to discuss? So that your child feels that there's still some person-to-person communication, that you want to hear from them. You want to know, how was their day today? How is this virtual learning going for you? Keep that connection with them. Research before you buy. I know that a lot of families, and I'm sure I've been guilty of it in the past or probably now, where your child comes to you and says, there's this new game out, everybody has it, please buy it for me. And most of the times we just do buy it, right? Without really researching it. You must research everything. Research the apps that your child is on, research the games that your child is on, research the websites. It's your right as a parent to say, this isn't appropriate. This isn't something I want you to play or go on or watch, because it has these, and explain it to them. Explain to them our ethical and our moral and our religious behaviors that you want instilled in them. So we have to go beyond just safeguarding it, right? We have to go beyond, I told you to stay online for an hour. I told you. There's monitoring applications or monitoring apps or websites that we could use to help protect our children. And I'll go over them a little bit later, and I'll even give you the names of them that you could install on your child's tablet, on their desktop, their laptop, even on your phones, where monitoring apps will give you a statistics of how many websites they've gone on, or even if they've gone on it, you could even use ad blocker. There's many apps out there for parents, parental guides that help you lock down certain things or not allow them to go to certain sites. And I'll speak to you about that. So monitoring softwares, it may not guarantee safe child online, but at least it will avoid many things that they can see. We also have to teach our children to report anything. Tell them not to be afraid. If they've seen anything or heard anything that they didn't, then they should definitely be able to come to you and speak to you about it. Do not instill fear into them. Instill in them being safe and saying to them, if they see anything that they know they shouldn't, or hear anything that they shouldn't have, they should be able to come to you, or at least an adult in the family, and report what they've seen, because there's many websites out there that can help them avoid them. And one of them is CyberTip Online. There's many, and I'll discuss them later. Like I said, a lot of this has to do about communication and talking to your children, keeping a an open conversation about these topics. And I know that they hear about it. I know they hear about it because they hear about it in school. We're constantly talking about internet safety and internet responsibility and how to be good citizens online, just the way we expect them to be good citizens in community. The internet is a community. And this is a community that's developing now more than ever. And they have to be responsible citizens while being members of the Internet Society, because they are held responsible for whatever they say, type, or do. And this is something I discuss with my students at Al-Hikmah. I let them know that if at any time they are a part of a conversation that is not right for them to be speaking about, they are held liable for whatever is put in text or in video or emails or discussion. We have to let our children know that as you are responsible as a society and community, you're held responsible on the internet too. I know a lot of times we, like a form of punishment is we pull the plug, we take away the internet access because they've done things wrong. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying let's talk to them about it and let them know the reason why I don't want you on the internet today is because of what happened. I don't want you to go because you've seen something. Let's discuss this. Let's see how we could protect you. I have to find a way to help monitor this before I let you go back on. Again, this is just all conversational with your children. So we need to know what platforms are on there. We need to know that there are many things that entice our children and our students, and that's games and their apps and this YouTube craze. You know, our children are fascinated by this YouTube world. Unfortunately, now, if you go around and you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? At least when I was growing up, you heard a lot of lawyer, engineer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be an astronaut. Now, when we're asking our children, what do you want to be? You know, because of this virtual world that we've been forced into, I want to be a gamer. I want to be a YouTube star. My reaction to my child when they said that wasn't of, you know, fire and brimstone. It didn't start screaming. And I said, but what exactly is that? What is that? You're opening yourself up to a world that you're really not very aware of. You're opening up your world to viewers and people that you don't know who they are, where they exist, right? You have so much to offer your Muslim community. You have so much to offer the world. Why don't you look into being an engineer who runs YouTube? Or why don't you look into being a patent lawyer who writes the laws for gamers? These are things that we need to discuss with our children, open up their minds, because unfortunately, today's society is putting this blindfolds on them and it's gearing them towards this, you know, gamer and internet YouTuber star. But you could tell them you can be the ones that are developing all these apps, or you could be the one that's writing the laws, and you could be the one that the medical professional that's online talking about how COVID has struck the world. Be proactive. Teach your kids to spot online offenders. You know, let them know there are tricks out there, people taking on anonymous names that, you know, most likely they're not a 13-year-old boy that's trying to play a game. Let them be wise with this, that when they are on the internet, they could be on the internet truly doing schoolwork and something can pop up. Let them know how to react. Tell them the first step is to shut down the computer and come and speak to you about it. What else did I want to say? Okay, so we want to spot red flags, right? We want to be able to tell a child who experienced anything online that they shouldn't have. And that is, they're spending increased time online. They're getting upset if you're telling them they can't go back online. If you see that they're really upset about why you're not allowing them to come back online. They're taking extra steps to conceal their phone or their tablet. And if all of a sudden they don't want to talk to you about this anymore, you need to be very aware of these signs that show you that your child may have been afflicted by something that they saw, or maybe they heard something on the internet. I want to talk to you about the resources out there that we could use as parents, that I use personally. I've used many times. Commonsense.org. Brother Ahmed, if you see that, you'd want to share that with our brothers and sisters. Commonsense.org is the leading nonprofit organization dedicated to helping all kids thrive in a world of media and technology. It has so many wonderful resources on it. It gives you a guideline on media as to even books. You could research a book on their website and it'll tell you what rating it is, if it's good enough for what age level. It has excellent educational resources on it. It has advocacy resources on it. It tells you how to protect your child in this digital age that we are living in. Commonsense.org you could even search a movie, a book, a website. It's wonderful. I recommend it for all parents to use as a platform. And there's something called NetSmarts. It's called missingkids.org only because when it was first made, it is really for children that are missing or unfortunately have been abducted. But it's called NetSmarts. It provides age-appropriate videos, activities, and other resources to help children, parents, and educators how to be safer online. The goal for them is to help children to become more aware of potential online risks and empowering them to help prevent victimization of other children. So it's NetSmarts. Again, I'll share this with Brother Ahmed. He could share it with everybody later on. These websites, they're really wonderful platforms for parents. And NetSmarts, like I said, has interactive games that your children can play. There's some games, there's resources on it for educators and for parents as well. And finally, Kids Health website is to guide your children also with internet and how to use the internet best for our families. And then there's monitoring apps that were rated the top 3 apps for installing on your phone and your child's tablets or even their laptops. The number 1 rated was Norton Family, and you could install that on your laptops and on your child's tablets. And then there's NetNanny. NetNanny is a parental control as well, and I know that's for Androids. That also monitors your child's net usage on the phone or on the tablet or on the computer. And then there's also Kaspersky Safe Kids. So these 3 monitoring apps are very highly recommended. They are highly recommended because they do really monitor your child's internet usage, and it also can block them from websites that they shouldn't be going on. Again, I will share this information with Brother Ahmed so he could share it with all of you.
Thank you, sister. Yes, if you can pass it on to me, we'll get that out to everybody.
Absolutely. So there are things that I want you to take away from this workshop that we're doing together. Again, let me mention, I am a parent of 4 children myself. I come from a very large family of 12. We were, born and raised in this country, and I've experienced many trends and many shifts in education, and the shift from the in-person classroom teaching to virtual has affected us greatly as academia, as professionals, as parents. We just really need to learn how to adjust to this world that we were all thrust into. As Muslims, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the strength to be able to stand tall and overcome these tribulations, right? We have to have our faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the wisdom and the guidance to be able to continue to develop these children into well-grown, well-developed adults who, once again, are great citizens of this community. And being a great citizen involves a lot more than just being academically wise. They have to have these character traits in them that we install in them or instill in them as educators and as parents and members of the masajid. Being a whole person as a Muslim involves being a whole person ethically and morally and being very well versed in your deen, because if they have a foundation in their religion, everything else will come so easily, right? Because if it becomes a part of them and Islam is just part of their lives, everything else comes into play pretty much easier. So when you're teaching your child right and wrong, they always should refer back to their deen. You know, this is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided us to. This is what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talks about, character traits of integrity and honesty. And when they're using the online or being on the internet, a big part of it is their honesty with you and their openness with you, these virtues of a human that we expect in our children because they are Muslim. Number one, I think that, you know, growing up myself and being a teacher and being an administrator, I've always been taught that I should be accountable for all of my actions. So now I expect that of my students and I expect it of my own children. I want to set expectations for my child, for my students, and you should set expectations for your child. Set goals for them to know that this is your goal. Our goal this week is to reduce screen time. Our goal this week is for you not to play on your phone. Our goal this week is for you to read this many surahs from the Quran. Once they know that they're being held accountable for something or that you expect something of them, you will see your child will start to aim for those expectations because they'll start to say to themselves, my mom, my mother, my father, my sheikh, my teacher expects me to be able to do this. And you tell them, let them know that I don't expect this from you, not because I want to prove that you can't do it, but I want to prove that you can do it because you are going to be held accountable for this, because they'll be held accountable for their actions. We have to be realistic, right? If your child is spending a lot of leisure time on screens, like watching TV or playing games, instead of jumping from, let's say the recommended is 2 hours, let's say you say to them, you can't go on it at all. It's not realistic. Start to reduce it for them. Say, okay, instead of being 2 hours on the games, I'm going to allow you to be on it for an hour this week. So that when they see that these realistic measures are being installed, it's something that they could handle and you are able to actually set that goal for them. Being engaged with your child is really, really important. I need you to know that, you know, I know it's a difficult time for all of us. Most of us are all working and we have more than one child, and there's just so many other elements that are in our lives. But once they see that you're engaged with them and the conversations are there and you're asking them about how their day went or what it is that is bothering them, they feel that there's a connection to their family and their parents and not so much to this world that's it's a black hole, right? So a lot of these children are reverting to the internet and going to this wild world of websites because they feel a connection there. There's a game that they feel connection to. There's an app that they feel connection to. Let's switch that and let them feel connection to us and make us the majority of time that they're engaging with. Put handheld devices away, you know, do, like I said, blackout hours, do screen-free hours, put the devices away while we're eating, put it away, you know. School's done. If your children are completely virtual, whatever time their school's done, put screens away. You know, 1 hour, 2 hours away of screen time. They don't need it. Give them a break. Give their eyes a break, give their minds a break, let them get away from it. It's time for them to do some physical activities, keep them physically active, have them play a game. If you can put them in a sport or whatever the masjid is offering, so that they have a balance that'll keep them emotionally and physically up to par. Go outside. The weather is getting better. I know that, inshallah, with the COVID guidelines, you know, they're starting to become a little bit less strict. Whatever activities that are available to your children that you approve of, I would get them involved in that. I know that as a principal, I've seen that there's a big shift in our child's behaviors, and we have to help them understand that this world that we're in is a difficult one, but we're there for them. This purpose of the purpose of this webinar or information session is to let you know that you're not alone, that this is something that we're all fighting for. We're all trying to keep our children very well balanced, and we are worrying about what they're watching, we're worrying about what they're playing, we're worrying about the apps they're installing, who they're talking to. This isn't something that you should fight alone. You should know that as a community, you should refer to somebody. And if you really don't understand what the internet's offering, or why your child is doing this many hours of homework, you need to speak to somebody. At your schools, there should be somebody, a form of contact that you could speak to and ask these questions. If you're not very savvy, tech savvy, or don't understand the internet as much as you would like to, speak to somebody about it. Brother Ahmed, if there's anybody who has any questions,
Sure.
I'll
Thank
share
you.
the platforms and the monitoring.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sister Hayat, for this excellent workshop. If anybody has any questions, you can post it in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question if that's easier.
Brother, also, I want to mention that if they have any questions, they could feel free to email me at hjaludi@iefschools.org, or they could even call me at the school. I don't have a problem with that. Like you said, I am working at Al Hikmah. I'm the principal there. So if they have any questions or inquiries, please feel free to call me.
That sounds good. So if there's no other questions, then we can end this session. And like Sister Hayat said, you're free to please write down her email address, and feel free to reach out to her directly for any additional questions. Obviously, we have a second session of this same workshop. It's coming up on, I believe,
April 8th.
April 8th. So thank you.
Yeah, the topic for that, brothers and sisters, is I'm going to be talking about how to motivate our children in this almost unmotivated world that we're living in. I want to talk to you about character traits and character development. This is something that I work a lot with in Al Hikmah School. We do character development program. We've basically interjected it in all of our curriculum. So it'll be a conversation talking about how we have to further help our children develop in this world, that how to perform as Muslim active members. Also, at our schools, where we are opening registration next week, you could also call me if you have any questions about that as well. Brother, I see that you posted the websites, which is excellent, and the monitoring apps. So please refer to them. They really are a good source. As a parent, I could tell you they are a great source.
Jazakallah khair, sister.
Welcome, brother. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very happy and pleased to be able to have a discussion with the brothers and sisters of Fusion. I thank you, brother, for your patience. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide and give us the wisdom and guidance that we need as parents to help raise our children. They are an amana, and inshallah we fulfill that amana.
Ameen. Thank you everyone for joining. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum, brother.